Is this on? We are live.
We are live.
We should wait a few minutes for a few more viewers to jump on board, but
Casually talk to Tom right now. Connection's good. Everything's looking good. I'm gonna go list. I'm gonna go public here. Right now, Jeff, you good on your end?
Yep.
okay. Are you done talking? All right, here we are with USCCA Live. We're on YouTube, right? Is that where we're going out live? Just, I don't know. I'm going to hit you.
Public in 3, 2, 1.
Well, here we go. We're live on, what is this, YouTube? What format are we on? I just sit here and read things off the computer monitor. So live, we're gonna let this vast audience build for a little bit. Tom, how are things going, by the way? How's 2022 been for Tom?
Better than 2021,
All
which
right.
was better than 2020. You know, that's at least something that can be said about 2020. It really kind of established a good bedrock to bounce off of, and then hopefully move up from.
All up from there.
Yeah.
So, folks, we're going to be answering your viewer questions here in just a moment. Like I said, we're letting a few more people realize that we're here online live, or as the old people say, on the line live.
On the line.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. We won't be taking live calls, will we? Somebody tell me no live calls, right? No. Just live questions that people can chat in. So I'm rolling on the live screen. I'm going to let you know right now that, hey, if you're enjoying this kind of content, and I'll say this again as we go on, we have 2 free bonuses for you that you can get right now when you join the USCCA, but they end really, really soon. You get a survival kit plus a Pelican handgun case, and I use one of these Pelican cases whenever I travel with my gun on an airplane. They're that good. All you need to do is click the link in the description down below to learn more. I think the description is down below. Is it not? Why are you laughing at me? I guess I just look funny. So we're taking some viewer questions, Tom. These are always wonderful. A person messaged us asking about using their firearm for defense of being hit by a car while they're on their bicycle. So I'm imagining this scene where you're riding along on your bike, car hits you, and you tuck and roll and come up shooting. So I'm thinking no.
Go. Okay, so I guess if they've already struck you and presumably they're driving away, it is what it is at that point. They're no longer
danger,
a threat,
no
right?
longer
Yeah,
a threat.
we can only use deadly force if we're in reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm. Check your local listings, but it's always something like that. So unless you're going to be able to articulate in court why that car now speeding off across the horizon is a danger to you, or maybe a third person more likely, okay.
And you can't use deadly force. But wait, let's read the question just for what it is. Using for defense of being hit by a car.
Right.
So maybe they see the car careening toward them.
Right.
And now they want to use their gun to stop this person using their car as a 4,000-pound bullet.
Sure.
Change the picture?
I mean, so what the prosecutor is going to use against you is, why did you have to pull the trigger? Why couldn't you get out of the way, right? In states with castle doctrine, you generally see dwellings, in other words, homes, condos, apartments, things like that, automobiles, and businesses. I have never seen a definition of an automobile, home, or business that would include a bicycle. I know some people do work on their bikes, they're delivery drivers or something like that. I guess I don't see this being a case where castle doctrine is going to come into place, or anything like that. It's just, if the car is careening down the road at you and you can't escape, and somehow that person's going to hit you,
You have to be able to articulate all these
facts. Right, you have to be able
yeah.
to articulate all these facts, and invariably the guy who is behind the wheel, they're going to say they didn't see you. I mean, that's what you're going to be up against.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just one of those real classic kind of like, well, I was going to use probably an example that's politically incorrect these days, but, have you stopped hitting your friend yet? Let's put it that way, right?
Yes.
Have you stopped hitting your friend yet? And it's like, yes or no answer. There's no good answer to that question. So it's one of those.
And I think we strip away some of the details here. That, take away the bicycle, take away the car, and you can use deadly force against an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. So whether or not they're driving a car or you're on your bicycle or whatever, that's the litmus test there is are you facing an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm, which rolls us right into the next question. A viewer says, I'm 75 and a 37-year-old man threatened me on my property. He took a swing at me. How can I react to this attacker? I'll get in trouble if I say hit him with your cane, but I would never say that. So
which you didn't.
So I'm not going to say something like that. But in that situation, objectively reasonable force. That's what I'm looking at. You can use objectively reasonable force. 37-year-old guy. We don't have any other details about that.
Presumably he's physically in shape.
Yeah.
Right.
Punching a 75-year-old.
Right.
Taking a swing at him, maybe that's the question. Is taking a swing much different than actually landing a punch?
Sure. Well, again, it all comes back to what you just said before, which is the fact that there's going to be a litmus test as far as where are we on the continuum of force, because that's going to determine how we can respond. Okay. So if what we're facing does not rise to the level of being a deadly threat, then we cannot use deadly force in self-defense, which will include any time we're shooting a firearm, any use of a knife, things like that. Okay. So if the question is, can I use a firearm self-defense? The answer will be, well, can you show how you were in reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm? Now, it could be in certain circumstances where maybe somebody, due to a debilitating medical condition, an inability to escape, because keep in mind, even though there is never a hard duty to retreat or anything like that, or rarely these days a hard duty to retreat, prosecutors will backdoor those arguments in because it's part of that, were you in reasonable fear?
Right.
Well, if you could easily escape, then you were not in reasonable fear. That's the line of arguments that prosecutors will take. So even though there may not be a strict duty to retreat, it's always part of the conversation. It's always part of the discussion, and as far as what we have to deal with here. So if you cannot articulate why that swing at you created a deadly threat, then you cannot use deadly force in response.
And this idea of a disparity of force, that all plays into what you're talking about to articulate the reasonableness of your behavior.
Right.
And I want to, I'll clear this up because I did say hit him with your cane. And I don't know if John is still doing it, but a friend of mine, John Benner in Ohio at Tactical Defense Institute, he might still be running a very good class about using a cane as a defensive tool. And John, while he doesn't need a cane, he always carries one in the airport so he can take it with him on the plane. And he has a cane that he uses as a defensive tool. And the class is nothing short of amazing. So next question. If I don't want people to think I'm doing this sort of thing. If one was to draw a firearm to stop a violent criminal and that criminal is dealt with before I get to them, could I be guilty of brandishing a firearm if I intended to use it to save a life? So this is a convoluted scenario. So there's something happening over this way, and you are going to take care of it, draw your gun, but somebody else takes care of it first.
Right.
Are you guilty?
They stop the threat.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So from a close reading of the law, someone could argue, namely a prosecutor, an aggressive prosecutor could argue, look, you were not privileged if you have a brandishing law or disorderly conduct with a firearm law, or maybe it's a violation of some sort of concealed carry law or whatever the case may be, right? To just insert the problem here, and that's kind of what we're talking to. So if there was, when at the time you produced the firearm, even though you didn't use it per se. In other words, you used it insofar as you cleared leather, so to speak, but you didn't use it as though you had to actually make it kinetic. You didn't have to pull the bang switch.
It didn't get loud.
Didn't get loud. That's right. So you could have a self-defense argument. You could also have a necessity argument there as far as defenses. I mean, if the fundamental question is, could a super aggressive prosecutor try to come after me for something? My answer will invariably be yes. Will a reasonable prosecutor, assuming that you're acting in a reasonable fashion, actually come after you? My hope would be no.
And folks, understand, at the scene of such an event, if you're acting reasonably, which means the event has ended, the threat has been stopped, you put your gun away and you are no longer a danger to anyone. This goes all the way back to the police response. The police officers are going to respond to you differently. I mean, you're not going to be facing any charges unless the police notice that you're doing something illegal, patently unsafe, whatever it is, that they have to take action there at the scene. It's the prosecutor is just going to be reading the police report, and it may not even show up. If you do everything right, it will not show up that there was another guy standing in the corner with his gun out and he didn't fire. That might not ever even appear on the police report.
Yeah, you get worry warts, citizen witnesses who may try to say something or they'll misunderstand the situation and think you're part of the bad guys.
Yeah.
There's of course security footage that may be pulled, although in reality it's often, I mean, maybe in public spaces, but outside of that, it's far less likely that there's functioning security cameras. People think that everything happens on security cameras. Voice of experience here, it doesn't.
Yeah. So I got a note here that I am to remind folks that these ads are going pro right now. This is, so if you're enjoying this content right now and you're interested in the USCCA, we have 2 free bonuses, count them 2, that you can get when you join right now. These bonuses go away soon, so take action as quickly as you can. You get a survival kit, plus you get that Pelican handgun case that I talked about earlier. All you need to do is click the link in the description down below, and that will tell you everything you need to know about USCCA and membership. This one is a little bit longer, several lines here. I live near and travel to New Orleans weekly. If you haven't seen it in the news, there's an epidemic of carjackings in the city. Reports, witnesses, and captured video show several assailants targeting a single victim. I am an older female and a licensed carrier, and I do carry. My concern is that I have contemplated a great deal lately is how to handle this situation with 2 or more assailants. It will certainly compound the situation. This becomes a tactical question on how are you going to engage multiple threats, and certainly I would suggest that you try to assess the situation as best you can and engage the most dangerous or the closest threat to you first. And then, wow, you're kind of stuck in your car. So if the shooting starts, ma'am, get out of your car and move to cover. So
I think if you feel unsafe and if you're parking your car, don't park.
Right.
Keep going. Right. People, I've realized, particularly if you find that juicy spot right up at the front, you feel committed to it.
Yep.
That's your spot. It's not worth it. The real problem, of course, is when you're walking to your car, because you're kind of committed. Let's face it, from a tactical perspective, you're kind of in no man's land once you leave the store and you're approaching your vehicle, especially if you're in, it's at night, it's dimly lit, you get all these factors moving against you. And especially if your car is out there kind of on an island by itself, people know where you are going, right? So that's where you can get into big trouble from a tactical perspective. I mean, from a legal perspective, you have all the typical use of force law. Keep in mind that Castle Doctrine does not apply, even if you're in a Castle Doctrine state, which does include automobiles. If somebody's stealing your car and you're not in it, that's not a Castle Doctrine situation.
That's still a property crime.
That's still a property crime. So do not use that deadly force against them to protect your car.
And what I'm going to commend this viewer on is thinking about this in advance. And folks, that's key. Making sure that you go through some scenarios. What would you do if, and just play it out. And Tom, you're right. Don't park there. I mean, if you don't have to go into a place where you are plagued with an epidemic of carjacking, well, I wouldn't go in there or buy a 1987 Yugo and drive that. And no one will take it. So here's
crime-proofing your life here with Kevin and Tom. We're solving all your problems.
The cutting edge of Serbo-Croatian automotive technology. So something I'm curious about. If a felon gets mugged and they happen to disarm the mugger, can they still get in trouble for possessing a firearm? So the felon is not carrying the firearm. He's just walking down the street. He has paid his debt to society. He is now a good, productive citizen, and he gets mugged. And in the course of the mugging, disarms the attacker. And let's just say goes all the way and has to shoot the attacker to stop the assault.
Or not. You're still in felon possession of a firearm, fundamentally, right? So what do you have to do? Well, again, this kind of echoes back to an earlier question of, could a hyper-aggressive prosecutor charge you Sure. What would be the defense? Necessity would be the defense. So
Okay.
necessity is a privilege, just like involuntary intoxication, just like self-defense. These are privileges under the law, which fundamentally you're saying, look, I'm not saying I didn't do it. I'm just saying I had a good enough reason. Therefore, find me not guilty. So states will have certain affirmative defenses, would be another name for them, where you're not contesting that something happened factually a certain way. You're just saying that those facts fit a certain criteria for why it's okay, like self-defense.
Yeah.
So that would, in essence, be the defense most likely from a legal perspective. Of course, hopefully, a rational prosecutor wouldn't do it. There's always, you know, and look, by and large, I realize that I beat up on prosecutors all the time. I'm not anti-prosecutor. It's just prosecutors are people. There's a continuum of good, the bad, the ugly, just like plumbers, just like defense attorneys, just like anything else. So there's always that roll the dice of who you're going to get. What are their views? Do they have certain politics that they bring into their job? You name it. And that's a very real problem.
And I think truly it's the intent of how the person ended up with this gun that folks are going to look at. So here's an interesting one, and I'm going to adjust some of the language in here because I think they're using the wrong term, and for me, words are important. You know, I'm a wordsmith, Tom. You know that.
You are a wordsmith. This is true.
Yeah.
A wizard,
Yes.
some might say.
Yes. If someone attacks you and you are legally carrying a gun and a handheld taser, can you legally defend yourself with a taser? Not a gun taser, just a handheld taser. And the word taser appears in there many, many times. And I think this person is not talking about a taser, which fires projectiles and interrupts your neurological muscle impulses. I think they're talking about a handheld stun gun that just provides a pain penalty and through electric shock and stuff like that. Regardless of what weapon they're talking about, we're having that idea of alternate weapon, maybe alternate weapon confusion, and someone attacks you. That's what we got here, is just attacks you. Yeah, you can use whatever weapon is legal in your area to defend you. Is this taser or stun gun or electronic control device? Is it legal for you to carry? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you put your finger right on one of the big issues, which is this particular stun gun, taser, whatever it is we're talking about, is this particular electronic device, is this lawful to possess? And keep in mind, there might be different restrictions. It's not just a binary, like, yes, all electronic weapons are legal, or no, all of them are illegal. There might be different shades, just like you hit when you get to OC spray of like, well, this particular concentration is good, but that one's bad. And as a result, these particular products would be lawful in those states, but these ones are bad over there, or all that kind of stuff. So obviously check your local listings as far as what those laws are. From a legal perspective, it ought to be considered, by and large, what we would say a less than lethal defense option. In other words, it is designed to be less than lethal. That doesn't mean that at 100% of the time will be less than lethal. We've all heard of the so-called lucky punch or unlucky punch, where, hey, it's bar time, some guys are fighting, one guy throws a punch, the guy just drops down, his head smacks the concrete, whatever the case may be, one punch, they die. We've got people, of course, with various cardiac devices. Is it possible that something like this could interfere with them? I'm not a cardiologist, but I think that that's possible. So
And just for the record, so no one calls us from Taser, Taser says no, that won't happen. But electronic stun guns, we don't know. It's
right. I mean, we're not talking about a specific brand. We're just talking about just the whole buffet of options out here. And I presume some of these will run a little bit hotter than maybe what they advertise. Other ones will run a little bit colder, so to speak, than what they advertise. We don't know how often somebody's going to be doing it. Like, are they just going to hold it on them until the batteries run out and the police arrive? I mean, this is a pretty wide open. This is the internet, Kevin. This is the internet that you and I are presently on as we speak. So everything's out there. Remember, you can only use force to stop the threat. If you're talking about a deadly threat, you can only use deadly force to stop the deadly threat. Yeah. Same thing applies for a non-deadly threat. We cannot keep using non-deadly force against a non-deadly threat. At a certain point, that just turns into you're the bad guy.
Yeah, it becomes assault or so forth. I'm getting another note. So I will read this opportunity again for you folks out there. Down the lens in the land of computers, Tom said we're on the internet as you speak.
It's a series of tubes.
This is very exciting for me. If you're enjoying this content right now and you're interested in the USCCA, we have a free bonus for you. You can get a survival kit when you join now. But wait, there's more. I've decided on my own to add a free Pelican case. So you can get a survival kit and a free Pelican handgun case. All you need to do is click the link in the description down below to learn more, and we'll give you all the information you need about joining the USCCA. Ooh, here's a good one. It starts out already from California here. If someone who has a significant size advantage over me tries to kidnap my 3-year-old daughter while we are together, does that give me legal justification to use a concealed carry weapon, a CCW, I'm saying gun, against them? And Tom, we just had a kidnapping scene that you and I were involved in.
I recall that.
So we can talk a little bit about this with not only our incredible knowledge but our experience as well.
That's right. So look, check your local listings because I mean, California may as well be a couple different states as far as what their politics and I would imagine what their law enforcement and prosecutorial attitudes might be. The fundamental question here is whether or not kidnapping a 3-year-old constitutes a deadly threat. And I think there's a lot of people, including myself, who would be raising our hand high in the air to say yes.
Yes. Great bodily harm, certainly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, right, so to your point, what's the definition of a deadly threat? Well, something where, you know, it could result reasonably in someone's death or great bodily harm. Death we got. Don't need to define that further, I hope. Check Princess Bride for a little bit more of a breakdown. This side of that, however, on great bodily harm, we're talking about a protracted loss of the use of a limb or an organ. Okay. I'm assuming if someone's trying to human traffic a 3-year-old,
We'd be calling that.
we're in that. Yeah, that's going to fall into the great bodily harm category. So at the same time, I can imagine that there's going to be people who are going to say, no. It may take a jury to sort that out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's fair. And I know you agree with me. I'm not saying that's fair, but that might be what it's going to have to come down to if you get the wrong prosecutor.
Yeah. So if you believe that you physically cannot stop this person, you know, 6'8", 295-pound person trying to kidnap your daughter, and you want that to stop immediately, I think that you could probably articulate very clearly that you believe this person would cause death or great bodily harm.
Especially because there's also going to be a timeline component to that.
Yep.
So if the waiting van with the open door is feet away, that's a different situation as compared to you're in the middle of a crowd and you're having no problem keeping up with them.
Yep.
And you know, you could be walking for 10 minutes and they're still not coming to you. So there are other dimensions to this question to keep in mind as far as when does the window to save them end and how close are you to that window?
Right.
Van right over there 5 feet away is a different situation compared to we've got a half mile to walk down a beach or whatever, and everybody's watching and calling 911.
Yeah, and understand, folks, this will be investigated. This your actions will be investigated. So here, this is wildly open-ended. So I love these kind of questions. Could my kid use my pistol to defend the house if there was an invader? Well, how old's your kid? How well have you trained your kid? How much do you understand the laws of your state? Things like that. I mean, if your child uses a gun to hurt someone, there are states where you can be held liable for that. And in a case like this, did your child use the gun mistakenly and it truly wasn't an invader or something like that? So,
yeah, so most states are going to have gun laws that basically say that if you allow a minor access to firearms, you're going to be in trouble. Okay. Now, maybe you didn't. Maybe you grabbed the gun, you went down, and now they pick it up. I'd love to see the and then the kid saves the day. I'd love to see the prosecutor charge you over that as you're getting out of the hospital and so forth. I imagine that there's got to be one or two out there, and prosecutors will pull the trigger on that. But I think that there's really the context of that question is going to be everything. For instance, if you allow your handguns just to be stored like under their pillow, your loaded handguns, you're going to be in trouble, I think. If they took the weapon off you after you were, wounded. There's a gulf of legal distinctions to be drawn between those. Between you're probably going to be getting convicted of something to you really better not be getting convicted of something.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This next question comes to us from Kansas, so I'm sure you've brushed up on your Kansas law.
Let's do it.
So, if someone enters my home and I tell them to leave and they don't, it's night and I can't see if they have a weapon, can I shoot them? Well, Kansas resident, you certainly can. What happens after that, I'll leave that to Attorney Grieve.
Take it away. Yeah. So we're going to have to, again, look at what's the status of Castle Doctrine law. Okay, so is there a Castle Doctrine law in place? And keep in mind, Castle Doctrine, of course, is never a license to kill.
Yep.
What Castle Doctrine does is it builds on top of the normal self-defense laws, because the self-defense laws say you have to be in reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm. Keep in mind that formula will change somewhat from state to state, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Maybe it may be immediate reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm, whatever the case may be. All right.
Just one moment. Where could anyone find this great information?
That's a great question. I've heard of a website. I think it's USCCA.com/laws.
Outstanding. And carry on.
Use the interwebs.
Yeah.
I hear it's out there.
Yep.
Totally free. So that's a great resource to learn and get kind of a quick crash course on what's my state's laws. All right. So that's self-defense laws, reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm. What Castle Doctrine does is it builds on top of that and says, look, if you're in a Castle Doctrine state that protects you in your home, and if somebody has broken into your home or is in the process, perhaps, check your local listings, of breaking into your home, then there is a presumption, that P word is followed by an R word, I'll get to that in a moment, but there is a presumption that I am now in reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm. In other words, I don't have to wait for them to brandish the gun or to take shots at me or to plunge the knife into my chest to say, oh, turns out the guy who broke into my house at 2 a.m., that was a bad guy. I shouldn't have waited for him to get close to me because I couldn't see anything. It creates a presumption that says, no, if someone breaks into your home while you're in there, you're inside, there is now a presumption that person is a deadly threat, and I can now take deadly force in my hands for self-defense. But I said there was an R word, rebuttable. In other words, the prosecution can try to introduce evidence on their behalf in the case against you showing why that person was not a threat. Maybe that person was unconscious on the couch and you're telling them to leave and they're drunk and passed out, or whatever the case may be, right? As unpalatable as that might be, the case kind of writes itself for the prosecution. The closing argument writes itself, right? So it's Castle Doctrine, stand your ground, contrary to what certain members of the media may want you to believe. These are 0% a license to kill. They're not intended that way. They do not function that way. We have to understand how they work and function, or else you may find yourself behind bars. And I'll just throw this in there as well, that there is another YouTube channel, Tom Grieve.
Really?
Yes, there is.
I'm shocked.
Yes. That where I break down and go into a lot of those laws. And also click around the USCCA channel, because both myself, Kevin, and Kevin on his own, we break down a lot of these laws as well. So if you haven't subscribed, check out this channel, check out Tom Grieve channel.
It's all out there, and if I say so myself, we do some great work. I got another note here that says CTA again. Hey folks, click on the link in the description. There's 2 great prizes. If you join, you get these 2 things. It's a survival kit and a pistol case. Get on there, click now, learn more about the USCCA and join, because we give you lots of great information above and beyond this.
Sometimes the 80-20 turns into a 20-80.
Well, yeah, we're doing the best we can with what we got where we are, and this one is taking me way down an unexpected rabbit hole. If someone follows you into your yard in the middle of the night, so
okay,
our good guy was just out walking in the middle of the night, like
right.
You do,
right?
And someone unexpectedly follows them into their yard, and they don't have a garage.
Right.
When does the person who was following you become a deadly threat or a Castle Doctrine scene? So I'm thinking you've got to get into your house, because you're outside in the yard, and again, this person's just following you. There's, we know of no other threat.
Right.
So get in your house and lock your door, and then see what happens.
Right. So this is where, from a tactical side, use of command language and that kind of stuff, and challenge language to understand. You're drawing an imaginary line when you yell at them. Stop, don't move, don't come closer, things like that, right? Because now you've drawn a line, and if they're going to keep approaching, you are now, hopefully they don't. But number two is you're building legal justification.
Is that a piece of
Someone's
pizza?
eating a piece of pizza right here, and it's pretty funny.
Okay.
But
live TV. Whatever happens.
It's the miracle of live TV.
Okay.
So you've created a legal line in the sand, so to speak, of, well, look, obviously this person was a threat because I told them to stop moving, and they kept moving.
And they kept coming.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would say, number one, using that challenge language, but more specifically to the question of when does something like CASA Doctrine, check your local listings. So kind of the definitions that we have to worry about here is, if we're just talking about the dwelling, which is commonly the language you see to describe CASA Doctrine. So is that just the home? So if you have a detached garage or any kind of outbuilding, a shed, whatever, is that part of it? Does it have to be an attached garage or an attached shed? Does that now count? Does only the primary living quarters, i.e. if you have a detached mother-in-law suite, or if you have something like that, does that count? So you get into legal words. I'm going to throw one at you. Curtilage. What's
yes.
the curtilage of the property? Basically, where does that line stand? And keep in mind that your states may not always define those boundaries, but also keep in mind what we just talked about, which is the fact that CASA Doctrine is, of course, it's not a license to kill. So just because you may be in a position, let's say hypothetically your state, and I don't know a state that defines it this way, but let's just hypothetically go there, that your state says your dwelling starts on your sidewalk, right? So as soon as you're bending a blade of grass, this is now a CASA Doctrine case. Okay, again, I don't know any state that defines it that way, but just hypothetically, right? Again, the prosecution can introduce rebuttable evidence to show why that person was not a threat. So you're always left with this fundamental calculation every time. And that's where developing evidence, kind of like how in a drunk driving stop, the officer will put the driver through field sobriety tests. They are developing evidence to try to figure out, where is this person? What do I have here? Are they impaired or are they not impaired? Same thing here. When you issue challenge commands, when you're turning around facing them, if push comes to shove, you're holding your firearm at the low and ready and that kind of stuff. And you always have to be worried about backing up, of course, anytime, but especially at night. I don't know what kind of lawn you have, but especially at night. You're building that case for, this person was a bad guy. Also, if you decide, hey, I'm going to run 20 feet or something like that, if they break into a run, that's also going to be a clue. Now, of course, you've just shortened your time interval to react if they're running versus not. Reactionary gap discussion is a different thing, but those are all legal principles and tactical principles that map one-to-one.
And I think the truth of the matter is, whether it is a CASA Doctrine state or a stand your ground state or however it works, the answer is never just shoot them, because there will be an investigation, there will be a discussion, and if you can avoid the use of your firearm, please avoid the use of your firearm and take steps to protect yourself some other way. Your gun should be your last resort.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. If open carry is technically legal in my state, so technically, but not technically, it's like legal trespassing. But if open carry is technically legal in my state, but not common, could I still get in trouble if I do it? It's legal.
Right. Define trouble.
Can
the neighbors call the cops on you and the cops show up and harass you? And harass could be in any number of different things. They're going to make contact with you. They're going to learn about what's going on. I'm thinking more like old school Milwaukee MPD. Like you're going spread eagle on the ground. I don't care what kind of concealed carry license you have. Where, that's what I'm thinking here.
Jeff and I were both going to take umbrage about, I wasn't doing nothing. Why are you hassling me?
I know my rights.
So
look, at the end of the day, could it attract law enforcement attention? Could that slow down your day? Yeah, absolutely. That is foreseeable. Not saying that that's necessarily fair, because if you are acting within the law, but is that foreseeable that could happen? Yes, that's foreseeable. And as long as the officers are are doing their job dutifully and they're not going to detain you and throw you in the back of the squad car for 10 hours and search your house and on and on and on. Again, there's a lot of context we don't have here.
And that's not trouble. That's just law enforcement contact, and you get to make a new law enforcement friend.
That's right.
Or you videotape the entire thing and you put it on the YouTubes as interaction with police officers for open carry.
And hopefully it's a good interaction.
Yeah.
So it kind of is what it is. I would, if you're thinking about doing that, I would encourage you down the lens, take some time to really premeditate on how are you going to handle a potential interaction with law enforcement. What's going to be your tact, what's going to be your strategy, and all of that. Because if that's foreseeable, that's going to happen because it's not common in your state, then if it were me, I would want to understand exactly how I'm going to handle this when a cruiser pulls up or if they stage a block down the road or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. And I'm to remind you again, folks, if you are enjoying this content right now, and I don't know why you wouldn't be, and you're interested in the USCCA, and I don't know why you wouldn't be, we have 2 free bonuses for you right now. You can get them when you join, but they end really soon. You get a survival kit, plus you get a Pelican handgun case. It's a hard-sided handgun case. It's great. I really, really like mine. All you need to do is click the link in the description down below to learn more. And we're rolling into our last question, and here we go. Are you ready? Do you have to call an ambulance after shooting someone in self-defense?
I have to my knowledge, in any state, the answer is no.
You're under no legal obligation.
Correct. Okay. And that's a really specific wording because most people, they're just going to call 911.
Yep.
I guess there are ambulance companies you could just dial up directly. That's really a separate conversation. But I mean, look, if I'm using my Firearm Self-Defense, I'm calling 911.
Yeah. And this is a question, too bad for you, Dylan. We're taking this one live because this reminds me of a question that just came up, very serious, about this interaction with the 911 operator. And I've gotten this at Concealed Carry Magazine, and I've gotten this on some other questions from our marketing team, is are we providing people information on how they should speak to a dispatcher when they have been involved in a self-defense incident? So bad guy pulls out a knife, says, give me your wallet. You say, hang on a minute, let me get it. You pull out your gun, you shoot the bad guy. The violent incident is over, and you're on the phone with 911. What do you say?
Well, 911 operators are going to be trained to get you to talk, obviously, to describe yourself, what's going on, where are you at, stuff like that. And then to generally speaking, keep you on the phone and keep you talking, right? What I don't like as a former state prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, what I don't like are clients who are going to be trying to go into every single little micro detail. I've had clients and I'm going to blend things together here. Clients in self-defense, defensive gun use situations, DGUs, where they've gotten very basic pieces of information wrong. Not because they were bad, not because they were the bad guys, not because they were trying to mislead anyone, but because they were just moments ago almost killed. Yeah. And it created one of the most stressful situations in their entire life. They are under duress, their body's under duress like they've maybe never experienced before. That is not the time when I want you giving an affidavit. Yeah. Which it's not an affidavit, but let's face it, you're effectively giving a sworn statement when you're talking to a recorded 911 operator.
It's being recorded. So, very specific question. You call 911 and say there's been a shooting. There's a guy here who's been shot. If the dispatcher says, "Did you shoot him?" What do you say?
Me personally, I'd say yes.
Okay.
Because
yes,
they're going to
he
learn
attacked
that.
me.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, he attacked me.
Right. Exactly. Stopped. I shot to stop him. He was trying to attack me, or he was attacking me with his knife.
Yeah. And then at that point, I think we'll say, just keep repeating, please send help. And they're going to send the ambulance because you've said there's been a shooting. They're going to send cops, all of them.
A lot of cops.
Yep. How many cops will come? All of them in that area.
Right.
We'll get there and figure that out. You're not legally required to do that, but calling 911 is a good thing. You call 911, you are then
Yes.
the complainant. You are then the person that they're listening to and recording, not somebody else saying, guy in a gray shirt just shot some other dude over there. So,
Right. And, you have to make sure, because bad guys move in packs, you do have to make sure that you're safe. Don't lose your situational awareness
Yep.
and turn your whole back to 180 degrees of problems behind you,
Yeah.
right? So don't assume that just because the immediate bad guy in front of you, that immediate threat has stopped, that you're clear, okay? I would say as soon and safe as you can possibly call 911, call 911. Or if you're out with a spouse, a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever the case may be, if that person's not armed, if they're not particularly situationally aware, number one, shame on you. Number two is I hope they know how to handle the 911 operator.
Yeah.
But it may not be the worst idea just to have them call, or at least dial the numbers and hand them to you, and you go from there.
Absolutely.
One of the last positions I want to be in is when the police show up, I'm the one holding the gun.
Yeah.
If soon as they're coming around the corner, I'm putting that gun down. I am doing something to disconnect me from that firearm, because I don't want to get shot.
Yeah, and absolutely. And folks need to remember, cops are amped up. They're scared too when they're coming to a gun call, a shooting call. So they need to know that. Well, that wraps it up for questions. And folks, I know that you have enjoyed this because it's me and Tom, because we do great things here. And I will remind you again that we do have special offer going on right now. 2 free bonuses when you join the USCCA. It ends really soon, though, so you need to click on that description down below. And when you join the USCCA, you get a survival kit and a Pelican handgun case. And when you click on that description, tell you all you need to know. You will learn more about the USCCA. So, Tom, thank you for being here live. All you viewers out there, thanks for watching us live. And everyone who sent in a question, thank you. Keep sending them in. We won't use your names just in case we chuckle about them or something like that. But this is good stuff, and this is a good opportunity for us to ask the questions you have right now. So thanks again for being here, Tom.
And let us know in the comment field as well if you want to see more of these. If this was useful, you want to get your questions out there, let us know. Let us know in the comment field.